The Arabic language is one of the most beautiful modes of communication. It comes in many shapes and iterations, representative of the many cultures that are found within the Arab world. Also exists is the classical version of Arabic, Fusha, that of the Quran and of all important literature up to the 20th century. But in Arabic, in both its versions, the classical and the colloquial, is struggling in modernity. Struggling in the sense that an infiltration of English into both the daily, private, and professional life in the Arab world is in an upward trend. Dr. Hanada Taha Thomure, my guest today, is the Endowed Chair Professor of Arabic Language at Zayed University in the United Arab Emirates. Her experience, expertise, and knowledge of Arabic on all its fronts is second to none. The education of Arabic, the science of Arabic, as well as its beingness in the past, the present, and the future. Welcome, Hanada, to the Candidi Chronicles. Today, I hope we're going to have a very deep dive into language and education in the Arab world. We might divert and go off course, but at the end of the day, that is our focus for today. So welcome to the Candidi Chronicles.
Thank you, Tariq. A pleasure to be with you.
Excellent. I'd like to start with something that struck me from the very beginning, your name. I've never come across the name Hanada before. I know it's a derivative of the root Hind, correct? I think that's correct. I'm aware of Hanadi as an iteration of that name, but Hanada, I've never heard that before. So you're the first Hanada, and I didn't even think it existed before. So can you give us some context, some meaning, and some history on the name?
Funny you ask. It's when you get a name based on a typo or based on how people hear it. So you know, when kids are born in the Arab world, we go to the Mukhtar. So what is equivalent to a mayor, possibly?
A governor or a mayor.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, and you tell them the name that you have chosen for the newborn, and they write it down, et voila, you have your identity card prepared based on that. So my parents saw Taha Hussein's Dua al-Karawan movie back late 60s, and they loved the Hanadi name. The main character or second main character was Hanadi. That's the tragic character. So, and I think they heard Hanada, they didn't know what to say. So they told the mayor, and he decided that it's a Hanada. So Hanada came about. But it's a real name. It has meaning.
Yeah, because I did some research, and it did seem that it had some name. And funny enough, in my research, I found a similar story to yours. A mistake, a misspelling as well. But it wasn't Hanadi. It was a different name. I can't recall the name exactly, but it was similar to Hanada or Hanadi, but it wasn't Hanadi. So what is the meaning of the name?
So the meaning I know is that it's the wedding dowry, the wedding gift that is more than 100 camels. And then Hanadi would be the same. Hunaida would be the less than 100 camels.
Oh, well, thank you for that introduction. I just thought it would be a great icebreaker to get to know you through your name and get to know your expertise through your name. So we're going to begin with education and education in the Arab world in general, and more specific about education of the Arabic language in our current times. The trend today appears to be moving downwards, in my opinion, in what I see in my country, Kuwait, what I see in other developing Arab countries. Is that an accurate depiction of education in the Arab world? Is it static, or is it on an upward trend, or is it on a downward trend? Where are we going exactly?
It's a yes and it's a no. From going downward, yes or no. On paper, actually things are quite good. So let me give you some stats as of 2024. So primary school completion rates, for example, they have increased from 75% in 2000 to 82% in 2022. enrollment in pre-primary education, so this is kindergarten and what have you, has been steadily expanding in the region generally, rising from 27% in 2002 to 46.1 in 2020. So this is quite an improvement, but it's still way below the global average, which is 74.6% for enrollment in pre-primary. In secondary school enrollment, the numbers are better. So they are up to 63%, up from 51% back in 2002. And the same goes in terms of numbers, in terms of enrollment, same for tertiary education. It is now up to 33%, while the global average is about 45%. So the numbers are not bad in regards to enrollment, accessibility, and legal accessibility to schooling. Now, there are so many kids in the region who are not in schools because of wars, conflict, poverty, you name it. But the legal terms and accessibility, having schools, they are there. So, which is a great progress or improvement for our region. But this is where we have to come and speak. Is this enough? In 2025, with all the ambitions, with all where the world is going, with the fact that we need now good education, we need quality education. Just being enrolled is not enough, does not guarantee that we are graduating people who are competitive, who are able to be employed, who are able to exist and survive in a world that's becoming increasingly difficult. So it's not enough now to write, because ChatGPT can do it for you, but now you have to compare and analyze and synthesize and go back and teach ChatGPT. How do you want things done? Engineer the orders you want to give them. So good education is not doing well in the region. And this is where we need so much more work and focus.
Your feedback seems to initially be very quantitative, from a quantitative aspect, that there is an upward trend in the attendance of school, the completion of primary, secondary, and so on. Now that can be the result of the expanding younger population in the Arab world. So just by that self, it's a natural growth, right? That's number one. And number two is the Arab world's condition in shifting from a fairly illiterate existence to one over the last, let's say, 40, 50 years to a more literate region, correct? So that explains maybe that growth or that explosion from a percentages of population attending schools. But my question is more about the qualitative analysis of this, the type of education. So if I look at the education of my parents from the 50s, 60s, that's when they went to primary and secondary school and then university. The way I perceive it and the impression the current situation of education gives me is that it's in a slight deterioration. And I'm talking now across the board. I'm not talking about one cross-section of the Arab world, the Arabian Peninsula, the Gulf, or I'm talking about a generalization. And most of our discussion today is going to be relatively generalized because we really can't talk about the specifics of each one country or another. So my question, again, it's that qualitative analysis of our teaching. Is that going down or going up, or is it stagnant?
You're cornering me. The quality of education is going down. And this has actually many reasons why. Let's start with my favorite reason of it all. And this is the teacher preparation. If you look at all the universities in the Arab countries, Arab world, the teachers' education bit, colleges of education in those seem to be the weakest of all. So to accept students out of high school into the universities, of course, you get those who go into engineering or medicine. These are the smart ones. These are the great high school kids who can go into these STEM subjects and specializations. And then you are left with the worst students academically in terms of achievement. And those are the students who are accepted into colleges of education, Arabic language, and Islamic education or Islamic studies generally. So what is happening, you're already getting the weakest students into these specializations. And the programs at the universities preparing teachers are really outdated, almost obsolete. No one teaches, for example, in my field, no one teaches a teacher. How do you teach reading? How it doesn't come, it's not a talent. It's not an instinct you have about teaching. It's a science you need to learn. And we are failing at that. The universities in the Arab world are not doing what it takes to graduate teachers who know their subject matter, firstly, who know how to teach that subject matter, and who are inspired. They are in there because they love teaching. They love that subject matter, and they want, in turn, to inspire the students they work with. So this is, in my opinion, is one of the main reasons what is happening, amongst other things, of course. So take, for example, because this links to universities, the spending on research. Our universities have become rote learning centers. They have become, there is no thinking, there is no higher order thinking skills. The courses themselves, if we go and do a mass review of teacher colleges or colleges of education, it is actually dismal what you will see. There is nothing that prepares the teacher to be a thinker, to be a decision maker, to be someone who understands their subject matter beyond the memorization part, someone who can actually stand up to the professor, to pose questions that are meaningful. Because what you are taught there, you will transfer to the classrooms that you will actually be teaching. So spending on research. So let me give some numbers, back to the numbers, because I think it's important. So usually high-performing countries spend close to 3.5% on research, R&D generally. For us, on research, for example, let me take Kuwait, since you mentioned it. It's 0.08% of the GDP spent on research. In Lebanon, 0.24. In Saudi, that spends the most on education, the money allocated to research is 0.45. The UAE is one of the highest in spending on research. It's at 1.3. So without research, without knowing where you're heading, what to do, I don't think you can teach well.
You jumped forward in some of my questions, but that's perfect, because I want to talk about teachers. And, I grew up, and I still believe teaching is a passion, right? It's not a profession. But we seem to flip the script there. We seem to look at teaching or being a teacher as a profession, like any other job. If you're an accountant, you're a teacher, you have basic skill sets, and then you dive right in. Whereas most teachers I was exposed to, and I was exposed to a great cross-section of teachers across the world, both in the Arab world and abroad, education was more about that spirit of sharing knowledge, of helping these students transcend their current state of information, of analysis, and what have you. So I think that's one of the perceptions that we're very, I think we're stigmatized by it. You know, we look at the STEM, that's where we need to head. That's where all the students have to go, versus other fields that are as important.
I agree, but I don't think teaching is only passion. It is partly art or passion, and a lot of it is science. A good teacher is made. They are not born. Maybe exceptionally, you will find people who really have that affinity to it, but they are made. And I have seen it, how you can take a reluctant, weak at times, high school graduate and turn them around with great, a great program with a lot of, not drill and exercise per se, but you can inspire them into becoming an amazing teacher. Someone who can self-learn, someone who works on themselves and always seeks to inspire their students. So I think we've lost that somewhere in our world. I think with the, like you said, the expansion of numbers, the population, with declining spending on education, although it doesn't work for all countries. The Saudi Arabia, for example, is one of the highest spenders on education in the world, not just in our region. But still, it's inefficient. There is an inefficiency in the spending happening on education in particular. So for teachers, we are not making good teachers. We are not marketing the profession. One of the things that I believe a Minister of Education or a nation should do, you market the profession. In a world where everyone wants to become a programmer or a AI engineer or what have you, we are forgetting that the person who makes all of these people is the teacher. We need to market it. We need to make it a very lucrative type of profession, money-wise, social status-wise. We have managed somehow, look at the movies, Egyptian movies and series and what have you, how teachers are depicted. They are ignorant, they are comical representations of a person. And this has been consistent. So I think as nations, we need to re-engineer, reimagine what a teacher and a teaching profession would be.
That's a very strong statement. And how does that translate, for example, in Saudi Arabia, where you say there's a lot of expenditure? Has that kind of resulted in an upgrade of the teachers' capacities, their experience, their ability to educate?
In Saudi Arabia, they have been excellent in ensuring that the educational infrastructure is excellent. Actually, it's better than what the global average is in terms of the environment, the infrastructure, technology, accessibility to the remote areas in the kingdom. But it has not translated itself into quality education as outcomes, as learning outcomes that the graduate will utilize mostly. And the numbers on international standardized tests show us that. So there is an inefficient system of spending that is happening in the kingdom, for example. So that needs to be regulated. And we need to focus on what makes teaching and learning better. How do we get quality with that type of spending? Because it's incredible. It's better than the global average. So there are a lot of missed opportunities to have a quality education in the kingdom and many other places around the Arab world.
But that's kind of my position when I mentioned the profession versus passion. I didn't mean passion strictly from the expressive, emotional aspect. I mean also with the mindset that being a teacher is of high value, of that social high value, where I don't think that really exists in a big cross section of the Arab world, especially the more affluent societies where they'd rather go work in an investment company than work for the Ministry of Education, just from a social status, from just the whole branding of it. And I think that's one of the things that we do struggle with, is that social kind of stigma that's associated. Oh, he's a teacher. He's not really successful.
Yes, we hear that. We hear that a lot. And I do ask at times, I do ask families. So if you have someone who's a teacher, especially a male, who came to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage, will you approve? Will you? And most of them say, with all due respect, but no. So this is where, as nations, if we are to survive the incredible revolution in knowledge, in AI, in everything that is happening today, if there is one domain, in my opinion, that we need to put all of our resources and thinking and true reform into, it should be education. This is like, I know that the Nobel laureate economist, James Heckman, there's the Heckman equation, where he says, every dollar you spend on high quality, even like birth to 5 years old, we're not even talking about the older ages, birth to 5-year-old educational programs will give you a return of 13% per year. So it's this magnificent, this incredible, that I think as a nation, as an ummah, we need to take a pause just and look at what's important. I know we've been very busy with safety and security and all of that. There are many conflicts around our world. I do agree. But our way out of that is decent, excellent education, excellent research. And let's, for example, I dream of us choosing maybe 3 big domains. What do we want to choose? Desalination, solar energy, and something to do with humanities, because this is a region that is spiritual, regardless of what's going on. So choose one area in the humanities, could be Arabic language, and let's be the forerunners with it for the whole world. I am a believer that we can do this, but we just need to focus. We have been distracted by so many things and so many issues, and we have been borrowing for the longest time. We have been borrowing issues from the West. We have been borrowing solutions from the West. And I think it's time we look inward.
That's very, very powerful. And I think part of that solution, and you've identified that problem earlier in one of your answers, and I always see this, or I refer to Arab education as this, where it is the use of a very dry and systematic, memory-based equation, as opposed to one that unlocks reason, the ability to analyze, the ability to question. That's one of the things that I think we struggle with. We struggled with from the very beginning of institutionalized education in the region. But I still think today, our educational system is very dry. So that's one question I'd like to ask you about. Is there a mechanism to evolve from that? Is it right? Is my position correct? And second, is there a way to evolve from this very dry and regimented, unquestioning, unaccepting of challenge, from student to teacher, from teacher to school and onwards?
It is really, this is a great issue or quest to dwell on and analyze. Mind you, though, I think in our region, with the mushrooming of private education, we are seeing the creation maybe of a two-tier type of population. A tier that has learned to question, to analyze, they're seeing models of Western thinking in that term, the questioning, the analysis, the what have you. And another tier that doesn't have access to that type of education, where they are stuck into the didactic, the obey authority, don't question ever. And there is so much, probably there is this fear around the region, and it starts from our homes, the way you are raised. Don't question. You have to obey the authority of your mom and dad, of teta or jiddo, grandma and grandpa. This is how we are raised, and to go against their word, you're not well raised. But then you have to go into the world, and you are expected to say no. You are expected to not agree to do whatever you are asked to do, especially if it's something bad. So there is this schizophrenia in the whole system. You have to obey, but you also need to stand up for yourself and be strong and say no, especially for girls, I would say, the way we raise them. I am an example. So how do you go then to the United States to study, or to the UK or what have you? And you are so, the only thing you know is to say yes and obey and be scared. And so there is a lot that we need to look at, and to say that whichever the product. So in the end, you are producing certain generations with certain traits. And those generations need to be able to survive a world that is based on analysis, that is based on so many times saying no. It's as simple as saying no to people who are trying to take all of your time, who are trying to ask you to do all kinds of things, and you need to stop and say no. I don't know. I feel this is an area, there is a lot of growth that we need to do as nations. We need some deep national talks about how we raise our kids, how we teach them, what the educational system is expecting, and also to understand, back to my numbers, that numbers do lie, but generally, the numbers we know of, the trusted numbers, say the better education, the more analysis your kids can do, the more higher order thinking skills they have, the more flexible they are and able to unlearn and relearn, the more successful they will be, the richer they will be, the more successful the economy they are working with will be. So I think we are shooting ourselves in the foot, keeping the educational systems that we have right now.
Just to expand on that, because that's one part of my question. The other part of my question is, it seems also that our education in the Arab world is not so much fun. I mean, we've stripped away from it the emotional side, the expressive side, the arts. I've heard you speak about this. You've spoken about the disappearance of, when we talk later on about Arabic language, of calligraphy, of the expressive side of our language. Even I think our exposure to the type of literary works, the poetry, the novels, different literature, is also quite reduced or sterile, it seems. Is that also something that we're seeing region-wide, or is that a misinterpretation of the reality on the ground?
You are right in that, and maybe this is where the borrowing, in a sense, came in. We have systematically ran away, it seems, from everything that made us unique. You mentioned calligraphy. I will mention Arabic music and maqamat and the art of al-zakhrafa, ornamentation in the way we draw things, art. And what we did instead, we just imported westernized, or I don't know, like they're shapeless, they're nameless, they're colorless ways of teaching that don't look like us. So imagine in an amazing educational world where all the students will have to take on one of the calligraphy styles. Each one should graduate knowing how to write using either thuluth or kufi or nasikh, like really well. And this becomes something unique to this region. Right now, I am not seeing anything unique. And what makes you unique is going back into your own culture, going back to your homegrown knowledge, locally generated knowledge. For example, maybe most of the generation right now does not know Arabic proverbs. This is something that characterizes this. I know all cultures have that, but specifically, like you are talking, you would throw 10 of them in a conversation. The poetry that we have just neglected, all of the stuff that make us unique, I think has been largely neglected. Our music, al-maqamat, al-muwashahat, all of this, which is so incredible. It's truly incredible. Our kids don't know much about it. So they later, if they are lucky in their adulthood, they will discover it and they will go back. And this happens with me so much at the university. Why no one told us about this? Why didn't anyone tell me how awesome the language is, or the culture is, or the richness that we have? So somehow we've reached a place, maybe with the expansion, where everything in education is bland, back to the taking out all the fun out of it. And fun doesn't mean that the kids are sitting laughing all day or playing all day. It's this beauty, just immersing them in beauty that we have, that is inherently part of our culture, that we have stripped away. So music became haram and art became something unneeded. We need to put one math session instead of the art, although the Islamic art is all geographic. Like if you really look at it, you can teach math and geometry based on it. So we're missing so many opportunities.
What you're saying is that our identity has been exercised from our educational curricula. It can be any other nation other than Arab nations. I mean, obviously, it could be any other Islamic nation, let's put it that way, because that is a part of the curriculum that is obligatory throughout the region. Just shifting slightly within education, I know you were part, correct me if I'm wrong, you were part of a report or a survey that was conducted with the World Bank concerning education in the region, and a terminology was thrown out, and I want you to elaborate on it, and that's educational poverty. Is that correct?
Learning poverty.
Learning poverty, excuse me.
So learning poverty, the term itself was coined not very long ago, like in the 2020 or something of the sort. where the World Bank and other global entities were measuring what's the literacy level in kids who are 10 years old, around grade 4, who are not able to read a text that is fit for their age and answer a few comprehension questions about it. And the shocker was that, for example, for our region, that percentage was quite high. So it's about 63%, and this was right before COVID hit. So with COVID, the speculation is that this percentage has really gone up, but we don't know. We still don't have the actual numbers. But it is actually very alarming that 60-some% of the kids in the region, in the MENA, this was for the MENA region, cannot read a grade 4 text and answer questions, comprehension questions about it. So this really is a symptom of the general educational system. What is going on in the educational system? And 4th grade, sometimes people ask, so why? The PEARLS test, which is the premier international standardized assessment for reading comprehension, is done in grade 4 globally. So about 50, 60 countries take that test, each country in its own formal national language. So in the States, it's in English, etc., etc. So, and then they compare countries in literacy based on that. And most of the Arab countries that take it usually are at the lower end, below the global averages on this. And it's reading. It's reading. It's just reading. It's not nuclear science. It's not trigonometry. It's really reading and understanding.
And what was their reaction by the different Arab nations when they saw the results of this survey that was conducted? Is there any, I mean, you mentioned that this was before COVID, so the situation is most likely worse today because of that glitch that we had with education. But has there been any proactiveness from any of the Arab nations towards that finding?
No, several countries are now in the midst of several programs to help elevate, especially reading. So I can name right off the bat nations or countries I've worked with: Morocco, Jordan, Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. This is what comes to mind. Of course, there are others, I'm sure, but they are actively working on programs and things that will help develop the curriculum, because I think we have a huge program, a huge issue with the curricula in schools. And namely, in my case, I'm just focused on Arabic curricula. There is a big problem with those. And they are working on teacher training. But usually what happens in our countries, it's easiest to invest in technology and education, because you can immediately see results and you can have a big press release that says, you know, there is this system or that system in all schools. It is easy to change textbooks and say, hey, we have changed the textbooks, we have new textbooks, and what have you. What is not easy and what is not as glitzy and glamorous and what have you is actually investing in teachers, which is most important of them all. Investing in teachers just takes a lot of time. It cannot happen by purchasing something overnight. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. It takes a lot of money as well. And it's just not as attractive. So most ministries of education, because they are always in a hurry, they just need to finish. They need to hit that KPI. They need to just have that press release. So this gets forgotten, and we just tend to focus on things that have not proven they can improve the quality of education in the classroom.
I want to shift slightly now towards the Arabic language itself. And I guess this is a question that will always involve the educational side, because that's how we come to grips with the language itself, whether it's through our families or through structured education, through different various institutions along the way. Now, my question is the simplest, yet at the same time, the most probably complex question. Why is the Arabic language in its proper grammatical and structural sense, Fusha, so difficult for us to attain or to command?
I will have to push back a bit on here. I really think it's so tenable, it's so accessible and doable if we have good education, if we have enough exposure to it. And I don't know if you grew up in the Arab world, 20, 30 years ago, but we all were exposed to Fusha via cartoons, I remember Sindibad when I was a kid, I remember Zena wa Nahul, I remember Sally, and we really, without a teacher, we just learned all of this Arabic and structures and what have you, just listening and being exposed to it. And now kids are not, with all the invasion of English language cartoons and programs and games and what have you, that have really been ahead of us light years in terms of attractiveness, in terms of, fun. So I think Fusha, or Fasiha as I like to call it, is very tenable. But we have had issues with exposure to it and with the teaching of it. So when the teacher, him or herself, they're not really solid in MSA. So they use their various dialects in the classroom. So you're depriving the kids of exposure to modern standard Arabic, to Fasiha. And the other bit is that this is not the language or the variety we use every day in our everyday lives, at home, on the streets, in the markets. So this also marks maybe another challenge, but we need to be aware of that and compensate for the lack of that in other situations and things. But we haven't, because we're lacking in language policies. We don't have proper language policies in our countries. Beyond having a few dictionaries, working on the historical dictionary has been amazing in Sharjah and in Qatar. So this is great. But other than that, there is no regulation in terms of education and in terms of the status of Arabic language in our countries. And I would refer the viewers to check the books by Professor Abdul Qadir Al-Fasi Al-Fahri. He wrote extensively on that. And I think we're lacking. We've yet to have a language policy. For example, I'll give you an example. Why should I, in an Arab country, when I walk into a mall, why should I be listening to Western music? Why is not Arabic music playing in all the malls and the restaurants and the quality places? Why do I have to go to a Sha'bi cafe to listen to Fairuz? Why not in elegant places? So, and I think this needs to be regulated by policy. You have to regulate that.
You brought up the element that we don't necessarily use classical Arabic on a daily basis. So we use our colloquial tongues, whether it's Gulf, Northwest African, Egyptian, Levant, colloquial Arabic and its varieties. How do we reconcile the two? How do we reconcile this one, let's say, ideal, well-structured classical Arabic, fasiha, as you say, versus the one we use daily. And what is now more or less happening, you're starting to see the expression of media, literature, starting to take that form more and more when compared to classical Arabic.
Now, we are not the only diglossic language in the world where we have two varieties, dialects and a standard form. There are several other languages with the same. And they coexist, and they're, mashallah alayhum, they're fine and okay, as long as there is this awareness in education that when kids come to you, say what, in grade 1, in KG2, kindergarten, that you are working to transfer them from their home dialects, from the local dialect, to the modern standard dialect. So it can't, there is no way in kindergarten you are taking a kid who's maybe hardly heard any modern standard Arabic, and you bring them to the class, and all of a sudden you're reading to them in MSA, and you're talking to them in MSA, and it's really a shocker. So we always are talking about this bridge. You need to bridge it via songs, via rhymes, via fun stuff, role plays, via all kinds of exposure that is sweet and gentle and fun and really works with a child development. Now, I have to say that dialects and the modern standard, it's not a complete divorce between them. There are definitely differences on the lexical level and phonological level and, you know, many other linguistic levels. But there are also a lot of, you know, convergence between them. So many of the words, you're aware, they're the same between Fasiha and the dialects. Even sometimes the grammatical structure. So we always say rajul tawil, for example. So in Arabic, in Fasiha and in dialects. So the structure of the adjective is always the same. So we need to be smart in our education, how we use these similarities, convergences, and take them into the modern standard and the engineering of our curricula, which we don't do, by the way. So what happens in the end? You have kids who hate Arabic. There is a teacher also who's not flexible, does not work with them. They're not exposed enough to modern standard Arabic, especially with many private schools, English medium schools, where they don't see Arabic enough. It's, 45 minutes a day, and this is it. And this is not enough for a native speaker of Arabic. So there is a lot of work and conscious effort that needs to be made nationally in order to mitigate these differences between the two.
You mentioned again the element of fun in educating the younger generations in Arabic and having them emotionally engaged. I think that's one of the main issues for children, is they need to have that emotional engagement. And one element that Arabic does or has done over many, many millennia is engage orally. The oral tradition has been a powerful component of the language, and actually was the driver of the language more than the written word. Yet we've seemed to have disengaged from that practice almost totally over the last, I would say, 50, 60 years, to where today it's almost an exception, you know. And I think that's a very powerful element, going back to identity that you mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit, I'm not sure if you have that experience or that knowledge, but how oral tradition played a role in education back in the day, and how today we can really unlock education through that tool?
This is such a beautiful question, and I want to preface with saying, today we have something called the science of reading. So in the old days, we really didn't know how reading happened. It was like shooting in the dark. We knew that teach them the letters, how to make these syllables, and then sometime reading happens. Today, because of all the brain research and the brain scans and the work happening scientifically, we do know that there are certain components you work on, and then reading actually based on those happens. The first component they talk about is something we call oral fluency. So this oral fluency that comes from listening, engaging in speaking, engaging in singing, in stories, in listening at first to the stories, because that's what engages kids. It's like, and adults, like, come, let me tell you a story. And you talk about all of these things. So it's funny, what has been an oral tradition with no scientific backing is now back full circle, that we are now told, hey, science is saying that you start with the oral tradition. You start with the stories, you start with the rhymes, you start with all of that we use to engage in as a culture, actually, heavily. So it's really fascinating what's happening, but I think we're still far away as nations now from that tradition, and it needs. Look, you are now bored of all the talk about curriculum and education. In our situation, I think, in order to make anything work, to reach the masses, you have to go back to education, to schools. This is your captive audience. So this is why I think if we are to bring oral traditions back, oral fluency now, what's it termed, back, it has to be part of the curriculum. It has to be part of the educational system. How many millions of kids are in schools today, just in our region? So this is why, if we are to make reading a habit, if we are to have storytelling back, it needs to be integrated into the curriculum. We need to go back to the basics. This is the funny thing of it. We need to go back to the basics, back to actually reading, writing, and arithmetic. If it were up to me, if I am a minister of education, what I will do, cancel all subjects for quite a while, especially for lower elementary, up to grade 3. And your only mission is to get them to read and understand, write a little bit, and do some math, some basic math. Once you get them solid in this, they're good to go with everything. But what we do now, they have geography and history and Islamic studies and science and math and Arabic and English and sometimes Chinese. And I'm like, stop. We are, as it is, our kids come from home impoverished. No parent, I'm not going to generalize, but we know that 20% or less of parents, of Arab parents, read to their kids, compared to 80% of the high-performing countries around the world. So technically, very few people read. So these kids are coming from home impoverished, no reading, no books, no one talks to them much, just go and play, everyone is on screens. So there is already a lack of background knowledge, a lack in language, no exposure to modern standard Arabic, vocab is quite thin. So this is where we need to grab schools. We need to do what is basic, what is most impactful, what we know from science, from research, from what's going on. This is what we need to do. That's what we need to focus on, reading, writing, and some math in lower elementary. And then we can measure the impact.
But why do we have to do that? What is that? Because our educational system as it is today is weak in the beginning years and maybe hence needs more focus and more time? Or is it because we're introducing elements unlike other cultures or nations that is too much to handle for those younger students? Why do we need to stop? Why do we need to pause as you propose?
Because we are not being successful. We are just giving quantity over quality. So it's not important that you say, you know, I taught them all of this. Look at the extent of the curricula and the content in our curricula, but they have not learned it. They have not learned it. They don't have viable skills that they can use, that they can transfer to other subjects, that they can, at least you need to get reading, because you will need reading for everything else. Even if you are studying in English, the skills you have in your mother tongue will transfer into how you learn any other language later on. Your knowledge of the structure, the language structure, this is a verb, this is a noun, this is how things work. So I don't think we are getting it. We have a lot of quantity. The content in textbooks is just scary, and it's not how it should be. So it's content over skills. While now, in this age and time, we need to prioritize skills and strategies. And how can you transfer this and use it in the math class and in the science class and in life? So note-taking. Show me a college kid today who can take notes efficiently. Show me a kid who can type in Arabic. Typing now is a life skill. They cannot, I elephant type. Okay, this is my age. This is my generation did not get that. But why aren't they being taught Arabic typing now? So there is a lot that I think we need to shed and then just focus on basics, on things that are transferable, and just start working on more inspirational content in Arabic especially.
Just shifting away from education in the public domain, I want to talk a little bit about education in the private domain. Private domain being the family home. How the Arabic language is also being challenged there. From my own experience, my family, I see, as you put it, little children holding tablets, watching Eurocentric, English-based content, speaking broken Arabic with English interjections, dealing with, in some societies, dealing with, nannies in that language. And more often than not, again, I don't want to generalize, but you see this disengagement from parents educating their children or making that conscious decision that they need to enrich their children's Arabic vocabulary, Arabic practice, just because they avoid doing that just because it's easier. So that seems to be a social condition. The question is, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it, and where can we go to rectify this situation?
We do have an issue with that English is encroaching on homes and the intimate language that kids should be learning, which is their home or mother tongue, and they are not. Parents, I think, in their overzealousness and care that they want their kids successful, are using English at home. Although their English might not be, it's not native, it's not great, but they're still insisting, ilbis shuzak, type sentences that we see. Wear your shoes, but it's using half of it in Arabic and half in English. And this is tough, but we are not the only culture or region having to deal with that. This is the same. English language and Hollywood and the gaming and all of this. It's everywhere. But it seems there are countries that have been quite successful and quite efficient and conscious in their addressing of that issue. So I think this is a global issue, but we have not been some of the successful countries or what have you in tackling it. So how do other countries tackle it? And mind you, Arabic is what? 22 countries, 350 million, some say 400 million people. This is not a small language or small numbers. So while you have a country like, say, Poland, Sweden, how many people speak Swedish? 20 million? How many are there? Let's say, assume. Yeah? But when you go there, everyone is speaking in Swedish. Everyone speaks Swedish. Schooling is all in Swedish. This is where thinking about linguistic policy. This is where you say, okay, all education will be in Swedish. And I think their numbers are way lower than our numbers. Their numbers, what, 20 million, 30 million versus 400 million. So the idea has been with our region is that we don't have enough resources in Arabic. But it's like, hey, we can translate, we can adopt, we can do and adapt and do a million things in Arabic in no time. But it is a political decision. I think this is where political will, policies, and what have you will come in. And when the kids are learning everything in Arabic, math and science, and as they should be, like any other country, the tendency at home then will become that they will speak in Arabic. So in a sense, I do blame parents sometimes that why are you using English? You need to be more enlightened and more in the know-how and just speak Arabic. English will come so easy. It's just, it will come. Kids will learn it and it will be their second language, and that's okay. You don't have to sound like an American or Australian or an English person. You just speak it okay, functionally, to get by, to do your job or whatever you need to do. You don't have to be a native speaker of English. And this is my issue with Arab parents, that some of them say, I don't want them to have an accent. I'm like, big deal, so what? So we need some awareness. We need political will. And we need to respect our uniqueness. I think we're still trying to find who we are, in a sense. I think we do have, as nations, an identity crisis. Not as people, as nations, we have an identity crisis that we think English is our savior. And in my opinion, we need English language or a global language to work with it, to function. But it cannot be at the detriment of Arabic language.
So you mentioned educational reform, basically. That's the political, social developments that have to happen. One of those has been echoed repeatedly, which is the teacher, the reevaluation of how teaching is conducted, how it's taught even, the types of experience that is necessary for teachers. You've mentioned just now about identity, reintroducing our identity quite strongly. And then you also mentioned the creation of content that is also very localized, because I think there's a big gap there for us today. What are some elements of educational reform that you believe are very important for our nations and societies today to adopt over the immediate future?
I really think we need locally generated knowledge. We have doubted for a long time the local knowledge, the homegrown knowledge and ways of learning, ways of thinking, ways of knowing. And maybe it's time to look at them vis-a-vis what's important. We're not saying don't import any. We have to look at what's happening globally. We have to learn, but we have to do that reflectively. We have to really think what works for us and for our kids and for the generations we would like to see in this region, and what doesn't work. So we do have now, I think for the past, Tariq, 4 decades, much more, we have been sending a lot of students, a lot of our people for higher education in all around the world. And they have all or mostly come back. So there is a core of educated intellectuals and scientists and thinkers who can really help re-engineer, reimagine the state of education in our region that makes sense to us and that keeps us unique. We don't have to look bland or sound bland or a faded image of other nations, of other regions. It's like we need to be us. We have so much to be proud of. But how can we how can we sprint into the future and stop dwelling on the past? This is also one of the dilemmas I notice we have in the region. This dwelling, constant dwelling on the past. I'm like, khalas, great. Let's take the bright things out of that. We learn about it. We pass it on to our kids. But let's sprint into the future with an Arab flavor.
Just on a light-hearted note and deviation a little bit from our discussion on the state of the education of the Arabic language or education in general, I want to go back to oral tradition, and you just mentioned it, and the kind of fun aspect of our language. And that was one of the things that grabbed me very early on in my life, is when I would be exposed to the use of, whether through anecdotes or poetry, the use of the accentuations or stressing of the same word in different manners, but would give a very complex and a very rich sentence or a poem or a phrase. Now, I don't mean to put you in a corner, but it would be great for our audience just to experience that, because I think Arabic audience will recognize those subtleties. Non-Arabic audience will probably think you're saying the same word 10 times in a row. But obviously, it would be nice for you to explain how those accentuations and those stresses change the meaning of the word within that sentence. Is that something you can share with us?
So I have 2 things. I have a proverb, because I'm a lover of proverbs, Arab proverbs. But I have maybe a very simple alliteration, maybe, that would reflect what you are talking about. So in Arabic, we have hub and we have hab. So these are written exactly the same, but the diacritics will make you know, or the context will make you know. So hub will be love, and hab would be seeds, probably. So, and here you go. So, and there are thousands of examples like that in Arabic, where the context of the sentence will allow you to know, okay, which is which, what is meant by that. And on the proverb side, let me share this. I'm so in love with this. It's a Khaliji, it's an Arabian Gulf proverb that says, اللي ما يعرف الصقر يشوي. It translates to, if you don't know what a falcon is, you will grill it. Which means, if you don't know like the value of something, you really will just, what? Help me, Tariq. You will not give it proper.
It's about appreciating the value of something. And if you don't appreciate that value, you will basically maltreat it.
Right. Thank you. And there are like within one conversation you have, you can throw in 10 of those proverbs and things and puns and playing on words, which is so playful. Arabic language is very playful.
I think I meant the last one you mentioned, where the play on words, the play on that similar word, which is exactly the same word, but again, the diacritics would be different for that one word,
Right.
and would shift the meaning of that word individually, but then it would complement that sequence of that same word in such a beautiful way. Is there anything
Right.
that comes to mind?
Look, there is something funny, maybe, and my brother will kill me for saying it. So my brother's name is Firas. He's the younger brother. So I always would tell him, Firas or ma Firas.
There you go. And none of those are his name.
Yeah, poor thing.
So actually you would say firas, wala ma firas, right?
Do you have a head or you do not have a head?
Just going back to the Arabic language, in the English language, annually, there is an introduction of new words, new invented words that are very structured. Some of them are assimilated from slang. Some of them are assimilated through the private sector, through technological terms, medical terms. What does the Arabic language have to say about that? Is there a methodology or is there a mechanism that introduces new Arabic words annually or cyclically?
Yes, there is, but the dissemination of it is so obsolete and so outdated. It's really unfortunate. So you know that we have the Arabic academies, Arabic language academies, مجامع اللغة العربية. So we have one, a notable one in Cairo, in Sharjah, in Damascus, in Qatar, in many other countries, Amman, and what have you. And these academies, just like the one in France, they are responsible for collecting what is being used today, new words, and either finding an Arabic equivalent or Arabizing those or transliterating it, whatever it is, and they have mechanisms and amazing scholars. However, they operate, so the knowledge is there, the work is there, they are doing the work. However, the method or format of disseminating or sharing with us is close to zero. You go and look at on their websites. I think the website is a 1990 type website. There is nothing on there. So we have a problem with dissemination. And this is back again. I will say it's government spending, because this is part of R&D. It should be part of R&D. Government spending, government support, it is not there. And they're not working with universities, with young people who are in graduate schools who could help them. They're not working on a multidisciplinary, so bring in the AI people, bring in the computer science people. Let's work with the knowledge they are producing. No, they work as if they are in an ivory tower. No one sees what they're doing, but they're doing. So it's sad. So for example, Facebook, we have an Arabic word for it, fasbaka. It's accepted by the Cairo Arabic Language Academy. So they put it out. And thousands of other words, which we don't know about.
What is the name of that institution? Is there one or?
مجمع اللغة العربية. Cairo is quite active. Amman is very active. Sharjah is extremely active. And there is one in Damascus and what have you. And these are government entities. They're supported by governments, but quite obsolete with very few exceptions.
But do they have consensus amongst themselves in terms of the new words that are being released, or are they individualized as efforts?
They are nationalized. So the Cairo one is for Egypt and the Damascus is for Syria. But they do collaborate on things. I know that the huge historical lexicon or historical dictionary which was launched last year in Sharjah, was the product of a collaboration between all of them, funded by the Sharjah government.
You mentioned again R&D, and I think for our non-Arab audience, it's important to explain the limited belief that Arabs have towards R&D. It's one of those things that it's intangible, it's in the future, that it's really doesn't have real-time results that we can touch and hold and see. I think maybe if you could elaborate a little bit on that, because I think it's it's a mindset that's different.
It is a mindset, Tariq. And one of the things I noticed, and I hope our leaders in the Arab world would pay attention to it, is that, so when you appoint a minister of education, this is what I'm, focused on. So it seems everything that has happened before that minister, as if it doesn't exist. And everyone starts anew. And everyone is in a race to just meet a KPI or several KPIs and to show, see, here's what I did, rather than we as a historical building on everything that has happened. So this, in a sense, makes research not very attractive. We want quick research. We don't want longitudinal ones. We don't want things that we build over time, over 20 years, to understand what has happened with this generation. Or for education, 12 years is golden, because that's 1 to 12, grade 1 to grade 12. You tend to see so much of what has happened. It's not attractive because the minister knows 2-3 years and they will go and someone else will come. So everyone is concerned, in a sense, with the 2-3 years of their service that they are in there, in that position. And I think this really has robbed us of so many opportunities, so much growth, so much built knowledge. Knowledge is not a 2-year-old type thing. It's decades, centuries that you build on, correct, redirect. You can't keep on taking sharp turns when it comes to building your knowledge. You really correct as you go. We have not been great at doing that.
And unfortunately, the money isn't there either.
Right. I feel the money is there, but it's not put in the right places.
It's there within R&D and not allocated properly?
It's not in R&D. It's an education mainly, or in something, but not allocated to R&D. And when we give people money to do research, sometimes also because we are where we are, I think even in our research, we need to be so focused. I want you to research 3 areas that are of national priority, 1, 2, and 3, and not just, research the feelings of I don't know who.
Generic research.
Perceptions or, yeah. So even when we allocate money for research, I feel sometimes we don't steer it in ways that are beneficial to us.
So you mentioned one element that I have produced a video about in the past, and that probably had the biggest reaction and range of reaction from many different people, and that's the element of reading in the Arab world. And my proposition was very factual, based on surveys conducted and behavior of society that I'm exposed to. And I got all sorts of feedback, from all the way from one extreme to another. Arabs claiming that we do indeed read extensively, to non-Arabs claiming that that is the source of our current state of being, because we don't read. But you and I, at least, you voiced this earlier in our discussion, we struggle with reading. We struggle with the reading of knowledge beyond the politics, maybe. That's as far as we get. And the happenings of society or what have you. So the knowledge, the real, true, and valuable knowledge, we seem to shy away from. Can you elaborate a little bit about our current predicament? And you mentioned also there is a big push towards improving that reading ability and that reading hunger for the Arab world.
Reading is like teaching. When I said it is taught, it is not just a talent or something you're born with. Reading is something you labor at, you're taught. It becomes a habit, but it needs a lot of work. And to do this, again, I will skip homes because I feel I have no control over those, but we have control over schooling and over education. If we read for kids every single day, every single session we meet them in Arabic or whichever subject, for 10 minutes only, can you imagine, calculate that over a full year, school year, for 12 years, how many minutes of reading that will be? 10 minutes of the whole day only, reading children's literature, then young adult, then, novels and what have you. Just 10 minutes a day. So there is an issue. I think it's easily resolved. To be honest, I feel it's one of the easiest things we can do. Enforce 10 minutes a day of reading, not from the textbook, but from, the literature and the what have you. Just 10 minutes, and that's it. And see the difference that this will do. So I think we don't believe in reading. If we believe in reading, we would have done that and instated it in schools. But there are some amazing things happening. Most notably, I will tell you, the Arab Reading Challenge. I don't know if you have heard of it. The Arab Reading Challenge is actually, it's a phenomenon. The numbers of participants, you're talking 5 million kids and young adults all over the world, not just the Arab region. So all over the world participating in this, it's a movement really. But if this becomes something mandated in our schools, and I think half of our issues will be resolved. It's mandating reading. We can't leave it, I'm sorry, but we can't just leave it floating like this. We will not read. We would rather be on screens. We are people who are interested more in entertainment than reading hard things or serious things or what have you. People do read a lot, like you said, but not the right things to read. We have an issue with comprehension, levels of comprehension, as evidenced by the international assessments some of the Arab countries take. So we have an issue reaching deeper levels of comprehension. This is why when many of us in the region, when we read something, we fail sometimes to see the deeper meanings and we rush to judge. We rush to say bad things about it, we don't see, did you really read it? Did I read what you read? And I think this is an issue of education, of the lack of real probing. When you read and you probe, when you read and you see beyond the lines, beyond what did they mean? What does that word really mean? Does it have background knowledge needed in there? So when you talk, say, you're reading something and the word phoenix is mentioned, do you know what a phoenix is? It needs certain background knowledge to know that a phoenix, they go into ashes and then from ashes they're reborn or what have. So there is a lot of background knowledge that you need that you will not get with that surface shallow reading that's happening sometimes in our region. And this needs education. This needs you to be in the class with reading and reading comprehension. And let me give you this statistic. So around the world, the number of hours for the mother tongue, teaching, English language arts or French language arts in the school, it should be around 242 hours a year per grade level. In our world, Arabic gets the 45 minutes a day in most countries. So this makes 140 hours a year. Now, in the high-performing countries, about 30% of all language education in schools, 30% of it is allocated to teaching reading and reading comprehension. So my question is, what's the percentage of time we allocate to teaching reading and reading comprehension? Almost nothing. Nothing. So no wonder we are where we are.
But it seems that we kind of intentionally avoid reading because we don't want to be put in a position where we don't understand what we're reading. That's what it sounds like from some of your explanations.
But we tend to avoid all situations that make us feel bad or not knowledgeable or what have you. Of course, this is why schooling becomes even integrating that in school. Going back to reading, writing, and some math that's the basics I'm talking about. This is where, because you can read and comprehend at a deeper level, and you will be fine reading history and understanding, reading geography, reading science, reading anything, and understanding at a deeper level.
I want to kind of take another turn, and one that's maybe more based on your personal experiences more than your professional experience. And it goes back to identity. And it's a statement that I heard once while I was at a dinner with some friends. And it was said, we were talking about Arabs who live outside of their homelands, outside of their Arab region, and how their affinity to their identity is typically much stronger than those who inhabit their own lands. And I know I ask you this question because you went through this with the upbringing of your children, your two daughters, correct, who are now in college?
Right.
And what are your thoughts about that statement? Is that applicable? Is that really applicable? And why is that typically? Why do people that live outside have this, they have this perception, this kind of higher appreciation of their culture, their heritage, their identity?
I never thought of the why of it. I've thought of the what of it, like what do you feel?
Well, tell me the what, and then maybe the why will come around.
Yeah. So definitely, when I lived for many, many years in the States, I always felt like almost orphaned. There is this sense of estrangement. You're far from everything that's familiar. And even though my English is good, I can understand everything around me and go with the flow. But it's maybe the why of it. There is a constant effort. There is a constant effort, like because with the language, you are always trying to understand. For example, I don't know English proverbs. While in Arabic, this comes to me unconsciously. I don't know. I remember when people would drop things from old radio shows or TV shows. I didn't see those. I didn't experience those. Or from movies, the way we do with the Egyptian plays and things that we have memorized by heart. So there is a constant effort everywhere you go, not only to understand and comprehend this second culture, but to also make yourself understandable, make yourself kind of semi-belong. And that effort at some point, like over time, it should become easier. For me, I never felt that. It became harder. There comes a time when I felt, I don't want to make an effort anymore. Khalas, I'm so tired. I'm so tired on the inside. My brain is tired. My psyche is tired. I just need what's familiar. my language, the adhan, I want to hear it, the music, I don't want, maybe it's bad to say, but for once, I don't want to learn something new. I want what's familiar, what's warm. And it was really hard, really hard.
And do you see that with your daughters? Is there that hunger to get to know themselves? Because they obviously had a different dynamic. They were raised through their formative years in, not in a foreign land, but in a land that was not Arab.
Correct. For them, I think there is more than myself, there is a quest for identity. For me, I know what my identity was, but I was striving to be in places that understand that identity. For them, there is a quest and a back and forth always. It's an oscillation movement between, am I American? Am I Arab? How do I make both fit? Especially that their Arabic is not great since they didn't learn Arabic formally, except for very, very few years. It's really, but I'm seeing the older they get, there is more skewedness towards Arab identity, that they seek it. Any course offered in Arabic in college, they want to take it. They play Fairuz at home, although maybe half the words they don't understand what she's saying. One of them is learning to play oud now, and she's starting to get more into maqamat and Arabic music and what have you. So it's really interesting. And I don't think it will reach a maturation stage or a fossilization stage. It will keep on being dynamic.
My last question, it's not a question, well, it is a question, and I think I want to assume a totally new scenario, and it's a question for you, but it'll apply to a lot of my friends, a lot of family, a lot of people that are within the same kind of equation that we're in, where you have an Arab child who doesn't speak the language as well as they should, regardless of the fine detail. If we go back in time, let's say, if you can go back in time with the tools you have today, the technology, the content, the theories and practices, how would you operate differently as a parent towards your two daughters? Within the language element, within the identity element, that's specifically, it's a continuation of my first question about that longing and that sense of belonging.
Yeah. I think on the identity bit, we as a family, living in the States for a long time, I will do the same. We exposed them to Arab friends as much as we could, to the food, to the music, to very positive discourse on the culture. Because sometimes we unconsciously badmouth our culture, what we do, Arabness in general. So I think we did a good job with all the positiveness that just illuminated their childhood. So that I will keep. On the language teaching, because I was the only person who could teach them Arabic, and I wanted to be mama at home, not a teacher. I think now with the advent of all the programs, the AI programs available to teach Arabic, I think we could have done a much, much better job with teaching them formal Arabic, even speaking. Like I don't think we had that cell phones even when they were toddlers. So this idea of record your voice and then listen to it and let's correct and what have you. There are many programs now on YouTube, even with Arabic songs and cartoons and what have you. We didn't have at the time. I think I would immerse them more with, whatever is available now.
Do you have any recommendations for, let's say, younger parents who are struggling now with their children in terms of that, that invasion of English and that kind of hedging the position so they can kind of reroute their kids towards Arabic?
I would say the first thing, you speak in Arabic to them, whichever dialect, whichever variety, just speak in Arabic. Anything, just talk to them a lot. That alone would really make a huge difference, because when they are older, it will become harder. They want to engage in deeper conversations, and I know this from my girls. And once you hit deeper conversations, they don't understand what you're saying in Arabic. They don't have the terms and the depth. So get them when they are really young and speak Arabic. 2, always speak positively about the language. You cannot know the extent positivity and saying good things about something can carry in a child's heart and mind. And 3, honestly, there is a lot now with like, I will name names. So Adam wa Mishmish on YouTube is such a cute program they can watch, and it's modern, it's new. For people who are a little bit older, you can use cartoons. I watch it. It's called Mansoor. Mughamarat Mansoor. Such a fun. I watch it at my age. And you can have it in Emirati dialect, or you can have it in modern standard Arabic. It has the 2 formats, which is brilliant. So there are some beautiful things available. Please use it and try to read to them. I would say every day, but whenever you can, just read to them easy, cute books, sing in Arabic, listen to Fairuz, listen to whoever you like in Arabic. It really can make a difference.
No, those are excellent recommendations. I'll put the links to the various animated videos that you mentioned for our viewers. Hanada, thank you so much. I mean, this has been a very enjoyable and informative and enlightening talk. I don't know if you have anything else to add that came up through your thoughts or our discussion.
I think we have covered so much. I hope we have not bored anyone, but it's that the solutions are not as difficult as sometimes we believe. There are many things we can do that are easy. Enforce 10 minutes of Arabic. Actually, research says the golden minutes are 15 minutes of reading a day. It's incredible. So, and it will not cost you anything, cost free. Just speak in Arabic at home, and so many things will be better.
Excellent. Well, Hanada, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your selfless sharing with all your knowledge and experience, both professional and personal. And we really hope the best for the Arabic educational future and the Arabic language in whatever direction it takes. And inshallah, in the future, we might have further discussion about such achievements.
Inshallah. Thank you. A pleasure. Thank you, Tariq.
My pleasure.